Hey, friend, Grammy here from recordingrevolution.com. Really cool interview for you today with Grammy nominated producer Jordan Sapp. Now, Jordan's worked with Jason Derulo, Nicki Minaj, Demi Lovato, and then even more recently, guys like Taruen Wells. This guy is on fire. He's a great dude. He's got a amazing ear for pop vocals. I actually recently had him on for my students, a paid webinar where he went deep on how he gets his vocal production sound. It was amazing. But I got to sit down with him recently. He actually found me on Instagram. He's been a longtime Recording Revolution listener and viewer. And we got to talk about how he got into the industry. His journey was a little different than most. How he broke into pop music through a guy like Red One, if you're familiar with any of Lady Gaga's original tunes. And also how he approaches producing vocals. He's got a very, very cool approach. He's a songwriter. He's very musician centric. He's a likable guy. And I think you'll really, really enjoy this interview. So sit back, relax, and gain as much wisdom as you can from Grammy nominated producer and my friend, Jordan Sapp. Well, hey, friends, I'm here with Jordan Sapp, producer, songwriter. He's a Grammy nominated producer, songwriter, Dove Award winning, and just told me nominated for a Billboard Award, which is awesome.
Yeah, man.
Dude, Jordan's, I wanted to bring him on because he's worked with a bunch of artists, from Jason Derulo, Demi Lovato, Pitbull, and then to the Christian music scene lately, because my daughters have this on repeat on the radio. It's Taruen Wells, whether it's the song Known, which I think that's what the nomination was for,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Known, or Hills and Valleys. I mean, really, really expertly crafted songs, and Jordan has a hand in that. He's a songwriter and a producer. So in a way, I wanted to have this conversation with Jordan for you, my friends watching, because he is primarily a musician. He's in the brain space of thinking about writing and crafting really good songs, and then working with talented artists to help that song be a fit for them and their voice and all of this stuff. And so not necessarily engineer first, it's song first, which I think is always the most important thing, because without a good song, no matter how good you engineer. So, Jordan, I just want to say thanks for hanging out and having a conversation with us today.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. I'm just stoked to be here. I've been watching your videos for a long time. I mean, probably since you started, so I'm just super excited to be here.
Dude, that's awesome. When you reached out to me on Instagram, and he was super cool. I was like, oh, who's this guy? Because I wasn't familiar with your name at the time. Right. And then I'm looking up, I'm like, oh, I know like all your songs, bro. I was excited to talk to you because, again, like we talk a lot about sound, and that's really important. But I'm always trying to talk about song, because I know, let's just take myself as an artist personally. If I just ignore any of my engineering experience or working with other artists, I know personally my recordings have gotten better once I've started writing better songs.
100%.
This is how it works.
So, I mean, think about it as sorry, you don't have, you need a song to work with. Like I can make, when I'm doing a demo, I know when it's a good song and when it's not. And so I can do a really good job of like working up the production and making the vocals sound dope and making it all sound, a master basically. But at the end of the day, like it still comes down to, is it a good song or not, So especially more recently, I've been really trying to, when I go into a co-write, not focus so much on like, I'm just going to make this dope track and kind of show off what I can do, whatever on the computer, but really lean into the song with my co-writers, and get that going first, and then sort of work on the track from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just like you said, like it comes down to the song, especially in Nashville. Song is king. It's like the phrase around here. So yeah.
No, that's important, dude. And in a minute, I want to get into your songwriting process, but
Totally.
for people that are curious, because I'm always curious when someone's doing great work at a high level with, you know, top of the line artists, it's like, how do you get there? You know, we're all musicians at heart. So and everyone's story is a little bit different. So maybe you can give us a synopsis of like, how did you get from being a kid to working with some of these top level artists and being able to do what you do all the way to Grammy nominations and Dove Awards and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, man. It's a very long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible for you. But yeah, I've been doing this since I was, 13, 14, maybe. I can remember like, I remember one time like in my my high school like senior prank, like all my friends were doing like the senior prank or whatever you do, and I totally forgot about it because I was like doing songs in my parents' garage, like, so there was that mind, like I just was just in it from that early age, you know. So I went to music school and in at Malone College in Canton, Ohio, and got a job in LA right after I graduated, working for Guitar Hero, the video game. And so I was doing a lot of MIDI work there, a lot of sound design. Basically, my job there was to design the notes that kind of come down the screen at you, and design like the levels, you know. So that was a super fun job. Long series of crazy events, like my the game got canceled and you know, fizzled out because it was a fad kind of game, you know. So long story short, I ended up, you know, in a situation where I didn't have a job and I wasn't I was trying to get into music at that point. I wasn't, you know, the video game thing was cool and it was fun, but I really wanted to dive into what I was passionate about. And it just, this opportunity came where this producer in LA, Red One, his manager reached out to me and through a mutual friend, and he said, hey, do you know anything about producing vocals, editing vocals, recording vocals? I just told him, yeah, like that's what I do. Like I'm your guy, you know. And then get off the phone and then like go buy Melodyne and like get on YouTube and like learn it and like all this. You just say yes and then figure it out later, you know. That's kind of been my mindset.
Because like, especially if people don't know, because Red One is huge. I mean, at least he was huge. He was doing Lady Gaga records. I mean, this guy,
especially at the time when I was being asked to, you know, help out or whatever. He, you know, just think about Love Dance, or Just Dance, and Love Game, and Poker Face, and Bad Romance, and that whole era. He just dominated, you know. So it was very intimidating, but very exciting at the same time to have the opportunity. And I'm so grateful for the Red One team and him and their patience with me. And because when I dove in, I was just like fumbling through it, but I just knew that like if I just worked as hard as I possibly could and got there before everybody and left there after everybody, and that I would, you know, just do everything I could to stand out. And it just, I don't know, it worked out. So, but yeah, so they, you know, they put me in the studio with a couple of bands, with some artists, and I really fumbled, like I said, I fumbled my way through it. And I didn't really know a whole lot about how to use a preamp and a compressor properly. Like, you know, the textbook college stuff is really all I had to go off of. And there's just no way to really know it until you just dive into it, you know. So it was trial by fire, as that saying goes. And yeah, so I just, like I said, I just worked as hard as I possibly could, and I eventually, you know, got to be one of his main engineers, and I was recording vocals for him and editing vocals for him and the whole Red One team, and really just became like sort of like one of the vocal guys on the team, you know, me and this other engineer, Trevor Muzzy, who's an amazing mixer and engineer. So yeah, went from there, and I kind of just built that worked my way through the team as far as just getting more into production and more into writing. And when you're just around it, you can't help but just soak it in and want to, I was engineering and vocal producing, but I was watching all these guys produce, and I just wanted to do that so bad. So it just learning from them and their processes and helping them as much as I could, from the vocals. If that was my job, I was going to do that to the best of my ability and help those guys shine. So that, I just feel like you do your job to the best that you can. And people are just going to want to naturally invite you in to help and help you progress, so. Yeah, and so I did that for like 4 years in LA, which was amazing. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity and experience. And eventually it got to a point where I felt like I had to make a decision to help my family out. I mean, I just wasn't home ever. I mean, I was just never 7 days a week, and just was never home. So I needed to make a change for my family, and so we decided to pack up and move to Nashville, because we're from Ohio. So the proximity to Ohio, now we can kind of go up there and see family whenever we want to. And I didn't know anybody here when I came, but I just felt like one, the Lord was calling us here, and then I also felt like what I had learned in pop and LA and that whole thing was, I really felt like I could bring that here to Nashville, and I would have a good niche, I guess, to fill kind of a gap here. And it's been working out great. So yeah, I'm just working hard, and now we're here. So
That's awesome, man. So from video games to in LA to then Nashville, and I, a couple of things. Obviously, I 100% align with your values of family.
Mm-hmm.
First, when you see even great opportunities conflicting with what you and your family need,
Totally.
that's why you have priorities in general. And that's not the aim of this conversation, but priorities are helpful, because when you've got two good things, you have to know what leads to
Right.
what coming from. I'm sure that was scary for you to move to Nashville, but it's cool, like what you said, because you brought that pop vocal expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And now listening to the stuff you're producing now and the people you're working with, I remember the first time I heard Taruen Wells on the radio, I was like, this kid can sing, for one.
Yeah, he can. He's an amazing singer, so makes my job a lot easier, of course.
Absolutely. That's not Melodyne. That's just good singing. But
right.
Great voice. But I could tell, like, if you take like the track Known, or even Valleys, or at least the very piano version that they're playing on the radio, it's like there's everything supporting the vocal. Like the vocal is the center. It's not a whole lot of hype production. It's like, it reminds me, I mean, I was thinking of like Bieber, like, Love Yourself. And it's just like, if you've got a good vocalist and it's a good song, let's just let that be center. But then the vocal has to sound so good and so crisp, and like, it sounds perfect. So you can hear what you've brought to that sort of contemporary Christian music vibe, and it's working really well.
Yeah, man. Even in LA, the thing that the team and everybody was focused on, the thing that I picked up right away was it's all about the vocal. Like, even in a dance production or EDM production or whatever, you don't typically, as a listener, I don't feel like, recognize that the vocal is the most important thing. But for us, it's the loudest thing in the mix. It's the thing that draws you in. Even in a big dance production, it's the vocals. So whether it's an EDM or it's just a guitar and a vocal, like my focus, number one, is always to get a great vocal, and the sound of it, the way it's engineered, the comping, the performance, that's the vocal by itself is a whole job. And I look at it like as a production, it's like 50% vocal and 50% everything else. Like that's how much weight I give to the vocal, you know?
That's awesome. I mean, that's so. Can you maybe walk me through when, let's say, you're actually in the studio now, um, and you're ready to produce some vocals? Like,
Yeah.
is there either like a go-to vocal chain for you, or is it more? Is it less about like, 'cause, you know, probably maybe it's you're mixing and matching different mics for different people? Is it that there's a vocal process that you follow that helps you get a great performance or great tone out of your vocalists? Is there anything that's kind of like, I always do this in this order? Or
Totally. I mean, I think it's fun, like as an engineer and producer to have like all the cool toys and like different mics and different pre's and da da da. But my focus is actually like I feel like I can get a pretty good sound out of a vocal with pretty much any decent mic. So I'm not like I'm not the studio in the studio. It's like all about time. Like I have a Manly reference cardioid that I use on every single singer that I have in here, and it usually just does a great job on pretty much anybody that I've never sat here and been like, I need to change out the mic or you know. So I use my Manly, and then I was using the BAE 1073 for the free, and then I had a they called the Brute compressor. It was all 500 series. And recently, I actually sold all of my outboard gear. That I don't have any outboard gear anymore. I just got rid of it all. I've gone straight into I dove into the UAD game, and so I've been using the either the Neve 10 what is it, the 88 RS I think is the pre, or I'll use their 1073 or something, and then I'll use like the LA2A, the UAD LA2A for the compressor. Um, Either that or I'll use the Tube Tech CL1B, but all in the box, you know. So and I love it because I'm on a laptop and I can have my twin in my bag and I can have the same setup when I, you know, go home or visit family or whatever. And then I come to the studio and I've got, you know, my rack mount Apollo and it's all the same. And it's just the ease has become so just amazing as far as flexibility. And so, yeah, like, I don't really feel like there's too much special about the vocal chain other than just, I think, you know, I'm when I'm recording, I'm watching my meters a lot. I'm making sure I'm not overdriving too much. It's pretty your normal stuff, you know. It's always about the performance of the vocal, you know. I feel like a good performance on a bad mic is infinitely more valuable than a mediocre performance on a $10,000 microphone. You know, it's so true that you can work with a bad sounding vocal chain if you know how to comp and know how to get a good vocal out of a singer. You know, that's just number one above everything else.
yeah, is there a way you like to get vocalists comfortable when they come in the studio? Is there a process you have found that gets, because, you know, singers are
Yeah. Singers are singers. Yeah, man. Honestly, I think that first half hour or whatever, like I'm not trying to pressure anybody into getting right on the mic right away. I think it's, you know, asking them about life, asking them about, you know, if they have kids, asking them about their kids or their boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, just kind of just talking and how are they doing. And because at the end of the day, like, you're working with people, you know what I mean? It's all about relationships, and you can't make a person comfortable any other way than just to like hang out and chill and have a good vibe and make sure the studio's clean. And you know, I think that's the most important thing, because then once you kind of talk about some stuff and you get to know some people, then I feel like you have a little more permission to be honest with them on the mic, you know, tell them they're doing great when it is great, and then when it's not so great, being like, hey, I love this part, but you know, maybe try this on this part, you know, being super talkative and energetic, and you know, you as a vocal producer and record, you have to provide that energy in the room, even if the singer is like not doing great. Like, you still have to be upbeat and positive, and just making them feel like they're the star, they're running the show, you know. So yeah, I think it's all about, like I said, it's just about relationship, and it's probably the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm sure, are you typically these days also engineering the vocal yourself, or do you work
Yeah.
with? Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to probably get an engineer here pretty soon, but I don't like I want to be in the room. Like, I want to be the one. I want to, like, if somebody hires me to produce, I just feel like I need to be there in the room with the artist, you know. I think it's just important to me. And so I'm still doing the engineering. I'm still messing with the pre and the compressor and turning knobs and all that. And I'm also producing the vocal as they're singing. So eventually I'd like to get an engineer to kind of turn the knobs for me. But yeah, it's just important for me to be there.
Which makes it even more important to have like a simple workflow with your gear, so you're not like
Totally.
running around while you're trying to think about, like you said, keeping the energy up. They're either in a booth, or even if they're near you, like if you're quiet because you're thinking and tweaking, they're like, they don't have a response. They don't know if
Totally.
it's good.
Yeah, you got to be doing two different jobs at the same time if you're going to be engineering. You got to be listening and taking notes mentally about, you know, I'm watching the scroll go by, and I'm okay, there's that word's good there, that word's good there. And I'm kind of marking that as I'm going, but I'm also listening for, am I over compressing? Am I under compressing? Am I, you know, I'm riding the gain input, you know, louder parts and softer parts. You have to get really good at doing both jobs. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that, but I get lost. But yeah, you have to be good at doing both jobs.
Well, yeah, and I just bring that up because that's really important. I mean, so many people like with my channel, maybe somebody finds me because they literally type into YouTube how to get a good vocal sound,
Yeah.
or how to record, and I can guess what they're thinking when they type that in, because they're thinking potentially technical stuff.
Totally.
On compressor. And that is a component of it. But what you just described was so critical, because even if you're just producing your own vocal, you can't even think just technical. You have to produce yourself and hype yourself up and
Totally
creatively. And so there's this other element. I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I resonate with your message very much, because I feel like we get into this, like, it's all about the gear and the mic and the compressor and the pre and like all this stuff, and it's like, it's fun to like nerd out on all that, but it's not important. It's just not important to me. It's all about the performance, and like I said, even if it's a $120 mic, like, I'll take that with a great performance any day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through, like, so your songwriting process, like, what does it look like? Well, on two sides of it. One, are you just constantly writing and then pitching song ideas to different artists and seeing if they think it's a good fit for them, or people pitching artists to you? Or are you working with an artist and it's like, hey, we want to work together and we've got nothing. Let's just sit down in a room and collab and start from scratch?
Yeah, I think the thing about writing songs and pitching them to artists has, in the last, like, recently, like even like the last 5 years, has changed, just because of publishing, and you know, the labels want the artist to have publishing, and so I think it's the outside songs aren't, in my experience, happening as much. So the best strategy has been to write with the artist in the room. So, you know, as a producer and a writer, like, and other co-writers I work with, like I think you just kind of collect ideas throughout the day, or if an idea hits you, you just kind of write it down on your phone, or um, you have like ideas ready for the writes with artists. So I'm not even really like, I used to make a lot of tracks and like bring them into the room and like we'd write to the track. But I'm not even doing that a whole lot anymore, just because I feel like starting from scratch and building in the room has worked better for me. Um, and I work with some of the best like top liners. Like they're so good with lyric and so good with like ideas, that I can handle the production and speak into melody and speak into lyric, but I rely heavily on my co-writers to like be doing, providing just good lyrics. And then the artist kind of speaks into, depending on who it is, like sometimes they're great writers, sometimes they don't write a whole lot, but if I'm working with an artist and a good top liner, like we're gonna get something awesome, you know. That's kind of the strategy, for the last couple of years for me.
That's that's cool. So there's like three of you. So it's you
Yeah.
and another writer and then the artist.
Yep. Totally. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's been, I feel like we all, like you all, you have strengths in the room, you know. So the artist is really can speak into like how they want to sound, how they, the message they want to send, the vibe on the track, and we can really tailor it for them. So I'm in my strength doing my thing, and then top liner, lyricist is doing theirs, and that's had the most success. I've had the most success that way, by far.
That's awesome. I mean, that's an important message for people that follow this channel, follow what I'm doing, because a good chunk of them, if not most of them, are solo, you know.
Mhm.
And so there's that curiosity where we like all aspects of it. We like the writing, we like the performing, we like the gear. And so it's
Mhm.
fun to just, there's nothing wrong with that, to play with it all.
Totally.
And many of the people that I've been able to coach virtually, either through YouTube or I've gotten to know through this channel, actually have the talent to do all of that
Yeah.
really well. Phenomenal. But it's also really helpful when I think you mature to a point where you said, you know, your lane, you know, where where you bring a lot to the table. And then you say, what if I were to take what I'm really good at and pair it with someone who's really good at writing lyrics or really better vocalist or whatever? What could we do together? And sometimes that's like a foreign question for people. They're like, why would I want to collaborate? And
Mm.
I'm almost saying to people, because the age that we live in where you can do everything yourself, we need to have a resurgence going back to collaboration, because we've had almost a decade of just working in our little audio caves all by ourselves. And
Totally.
and it's actually more fun, and maybe you create a better product. For a good example for me I've been using lately is, because I like to do a lot of stuff myself, and I'll co-write with people in my worship band if I've done worship records. But if it's been my own music, the last decade has just been me making my music for fun.
Mm.
But 2 years ago, one of my buddies, a talented EDM producer out of Miami, Ill Factor. I mean, and
Yeah.
he's worked with Jason Derulo. I mean, and I don't even know if your guys' paths have crossed, but he's a amazing dude. He's a Christian. He's a family man. But he reached out to me and we started connecting as friends. And then he sent me a track he was writing for a video game, and he had some demo vocals he just threw on there. And he's not necessarily a vocalist, but he wanted just my opinion on the track, you know, any
Right.
thoughts on the track, friend. I was like, this track is amazing, but you got to let me sing on it. And I was kind of joking, because I didn't know if he had an artist he was writing it for, because he'll do that a lot. And he said, well, sure, man, why don't you, finish writing the lyrics and give it a shot? And so we collaborated on it. And because of his sound being different than mine, and his ideas gave me ideas, and I added a little bit of rock guitar, but it's mostly this EDM track. And then because of his publishing deal and the people he knows, we got the Roots to play the song on Fallon for
That's
like
dope.
50 seconds. And it's like, I've been working hard for 10, 15 years on my stuff, and I work with one track with one collaboration,
Right.
and it turns out better. It's a humbling but exciting experience.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think that like in music now, um, it's almost like you have to collaborate, like just to not only because I feel like the song and the production and everything just is better that way because you're just getting feedback. Like I'll be working on a demo. I'll send it to the top liner first, and just get his thoughts on or his or her thoughts on, you know, you feeling this track is, and then they'll have feedback or whatever, and that's great. Then I'll send it to the artist because I just feel like two heads are better than one, and like you just get some feedback from you bouncing ideas off each other. I feel like that's just how ideas get better. Um, and I also feel like in the way music is now, like it 10 years ago, um, it was super secretive. Where it was like the top guys were like hiding their tricks. It was like a it was kind of like closed off and whatever. But now it's like we're all using the same software, the same plugins. Like me and Max Martin are using the same stuff now. You know what I mean? So now it just comes down to talent and like and relationships and being a good hang and all that. And so like I'll be like I'll text the producer and be like, yo, like that snare on that song is like crazy. Like what are you doing there? And I just did this the other day, and he was like, oh, I'll just send it to you. So he sent me the snare, and it's like this very like collaborative, like fun thing where I just don't think music was like that up until very recent, like with Splice and all this collaborating. And, you know, I just think it's the way, if you want to get into the business, like being a good hang, being a fun hang, like being willing to talk about, you look at these producers on Instagram, like look at their Instagram stories and you'll just learn because they just put up their tricks on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like it's just the way we're all working now. And if you're going to try to do everything yourself and be closed off, and I just feel like you're closing yourself off from what's all going on.
Dude, that's huge. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's like a powerful message to make, you know, because I think I don't know what it is about musicians and engineers and people who are into this that and I'm throwing myself in this camp because I know my default is I'm happy to do it myself. I'm happy to just keep the door closed and work in here and create. And what I'm personally grateful for is because I kind of had like a backdoor into the industry. You know, I wanted to do the artist thing first, and then was trying to get signed, and it didn't quite work out. And I was like, I can't keep doing that. I was about to get married, and I was like, and then I was working in a studio, and then those hours were awful. And I was like, I'll freelance and do my own thing. And then I started this YouTube channel to get more freelance work, and then God turned it into something totally I wasn't expecting. But what's interesting is even with having a YouTube channel, because you could be a YouTuber and stay in your room all day long.
Right.
From day one, I was like, I'm going to fly out to LA. I'm going to go to the NAMM show. I'm going to go to where people are. Nobody knows who I am, but I'm going to walk around saying, hey, I'm the Recording Revolution guy.
Right.
What can I do to help you? And I'm an introvert. It was expensive to fly and get home. It's awkward. But that's when I started to meet people, and you bump into Dave Pin, you bump into, you know, all these people, and you become friends and you become collaborators and you share, and opportunities have come by, like you said, not closing myself off, opening myself up to others. And there's no magic to it. It's just physically, the more people you know, and they realize you're a good human being and you're willing to help them, the more opportunities happen.
Yeah, man, it's all about relationships. Like I hate the word like networking because it just implies like you're trying to get something out of people. I much prefer building relationships as like you're genuinely like trying to like add value to people and build genuine relationships, because I think that's at least for me, like that's the that's the most success I've seen in my career, has just been being a good hang. Like I've said that so many times, but being a good hang, being a fun person to be around. And I'm typically like an introvert, and I'm kind of like reserved and quiet, so like that's hard for me as well. But just it's just all about sharing and building, like diving into the community of musicians in your area. I mean, even if you're trying to get started, like don't just make music in your at your place by yourself. Like find people around it, find people that live near you and work together and just collaborate, because that's how things happen, I feel like.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I was thinking about someone was just either it was an article I was reading or I was talking to someone and I was thinking about like how Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre collaborated
Yeah.
years early 90s, right? And like Dr. Dre was already established and no one knew who's the Snoop Dogg guy.
Right.
And he brought a track to Dre, was like, hey, this should be your track, and I'll just collaborate with you on it. And so it came out as Dr. Dre featuring Snoop Dogg, but
Totally.
who is Snoop Dogg? But it's like he brought value to Dr. Dre,
Totally.
and now he's
Totally.
double OG, but
and it's easier than ever now, like with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, like kind of like what I did with you. Like you just reach out and just just build connections and see how you can help people and just work together, and that's kind of it. It's if you just go into every relationship as like, how can I help you, how can I add value, I feel like that's just the mindset you should have and people naturally want to help you back. And yeah, that's kind of how things are working.
that's awesome, man. Well, Jordan, where can people find you online if they want to follow your work or just reach out and say, hey, or ask you a question? Is there a good place? Is it Instagram?
Yeah, my Instagram is pretty much what I'm mainly on. I'm not really on Twitter a whole lot. So Sapp Music, you can find me there on Instagram.
Cool. I'll put that on the screen. So at JSAP Music. And dude, thanks for hanging out and sharing, man, and being willing to open up about your process and your story.
Yeah,
and again, this is why I knew I wanted to have you on because you're just a cool dude and you've got humility and you're not a jerk. Like it's pretty simple, but dude, thanks for hanging and sharing. And congratulations on the Billboard nomination and
Thanks,
all the success. And I'm going to continue to follow your work, man. I love what you do.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Love being here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Jordan's such a good dude. I love watching back and listening to what we talked about and how he shares. He's just so unassuming. Now, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into production and mixing and some of the things we talked about, not just on vocals, but really taking your songs and doing what a real producer would do, going from, okay, cool, you got a song idea. What if we write a better song? But also then how do we produce that so that when we get to the final mix that we share and stream with our friends, it sounds amazing? How do you do that from start to finish? Well, there are 6 distinct steps to creating an amazing sounding song, a radio ready song. And every song goes through this process. All of Jordan's songs go through this process. And I want to break down this process for you. I have a 6 steps to a radio ready song guide. You should download it. It's free. Put the link here in the video. It's in the description below. And it's going to be a simple PDF that you can reference. And I want you to reference it. Use it as a map or a template every time you got an idea for a song. It's going to give you best practices. It's going to give you a step-by-step workflow. And most importantly, it's going to make sure that your song sounds its absolute best. So you don't have a demo, you have a radio-ready song. So it's my gift to you. Just download it at radioreadyguide.com or click the link here in the video or below in the description box. As always, thanks for watching and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot. I'll see you on another video real soon.